eclectic bunch of speakers today. We have got quite a lot of tea and coffee and cake coming in about half an hour, so yes, take goodie bags home as well. I'm Sheila McNeil, and along with Graham Steele and Graham Arnott, we're kind of the very informal organisers of this. If anyone has any ideas for future meetings, or would like to present or share anything, then please let us know. We're always looking for new ideas. Unfortunately, there's no one here from the Urban Big Data Centre, but they have kindly...
He's got a cold.
He's got yeah. They have kindly hosted again for us, booked the room and provide all the tea and cake, so that's good, and they're willing to do that, and hopefully at the next meeting they said they would give us an update. We're hoping to have Walter Fry,
yes.
Walter Fry, yeah. Well, he's from a community project that's been doing some work with the Glasgow Future Cities project. Unfortunately, he's had family illness today, so he can't meet up. We've got Huma, who's maybe going to give us just a quick verbal update on what's happening, and Walter's going to come to hopefully the next meeting as well, whenever we do that. So thank you again for coming. So I'm going to hand over to Ian Stewart, who works with Glow.
Yes.
I'll let Ian explain to you, but some really exciting things happening in terms of what's happening in Scottish schools, and I've seen a bit of the stuff that Ian's been working on from when he started with Education Scotland, and the journey he's been on has been immense, and I'm very jealous that I'm not as... never thought I'd ever say this, but I would actually quite like to go to school now. And I hated
You've never been to school?
No, I hated school as well.
Confession.
Yeah, well,
That's a confession, isn't it?
well, I did go to school, but of sorts. Yeah.
Of
Anyway,
sorts.
I
There's a definite story in there.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a bit unusual.
Yeah.
was Scott
Signing.
Yeah.
silent?
No, we're talking to some of your colleagues about alternative methods of authentication.
Oh, well, this is
Yes. So,
fantastic.
first, well, my name's Ian Stewart. I'm actually a woodwork teacher from Govan originally, although now working at Isla High School, seconded to the Scottish Government. Now, I'll take it to the management console, that's probably the easiest. Okay, now, actually, I'll show you where I actually teach. Start Google. Please, any comment, any particular areas you want to look at, just jump in. A rather famous name, Bow. Lots of your it. Now there's Bow Distillery and there's Isla High School. Okay, so I was there for 12 years. The tunnel was just about finished. Big drill, wading it through. And the school, there's the distillery, there's a school. So this was my area. In Isla, we cover 2 islands. We cover Isla and Jura. Every pupil has a tablet PC. Every teacher has a tablet PC. Has done for 10 years now. We have an excellent internet connection to the mainland until Arran got wiped out about 3 years ago because our internet connection actually microwaves across the islands. So we don't use BT. So it bounces right across. And when Arran got taken out with the snowstorms about 3 years ago, our internet connection got wiped out. But people were very understanding. They looked at Arran and like, at least it's not us. So covering Isla and Jura means that one of the largest school catchment areas in Britain, I think, and certainly at the north end of Jura is where George Orwell wrote 1984. So the catchment area of my school is the last place in Europe, because that's the way George Orwell described it, the last place in Europe. So I'm very proud of that, the fact that my school catchment area. But as you can see, there's a sound of Jura between the two. Quite often the kids used to get stuck and they would get told, ferry's off today, it's too rough, go home. They hate the technology because they no longer can go home. They go to the council service point with a couple of teachers and they sign into the Wi-Fi and collect their lessons and they get very annoyed. And I can relate to that. So we've been doing that for about 10 years. It's proved to be sustainable and successful. Just to let you know, the average amount of school of 1,000 pupils will go through a pallet of paper a week, and about 10% of that is actually to do with the curriculum, which is quite shocking. Most of it ends up mashed at the bottom of bags, underneath football boots, rugby boots, swimming costumes, the whole bit. It doesn't actually make it home. So we saved £60,000 in 4 years in printing and photocopying costs, which made the whole thing sustainable. So that's where I started. You were talking about Glow. Glow used to be a SharePoint 2003 system, which was a VLE, a virtual learning environment, with a few services bolted on through Shibboleth. In 2012, I was asked to join something called the ICT Excellence Group to say, this is no longer fit for purpose, where should we go with our school education network? Should we even have one? Big question. So we came up with a few recommendations. One, they said, remove our authentication system from here. From SharePoint and have it as an overarching thing. So this gets fed, all our data actually comes from something called CMIS. And it's our MIS, the Management Information System. So that's a company called CMIS. And interestingly, CMIS, as you can see, is an LLP, which means it's not a private company. It's actually owned by the West Coast local authorities. And it's halfway between a non-profit organisation and a charity. Which means, because it's not for profit, we can trust a lot of what they're trying to do. I don't agree with all they're trying to do, but it's changing and growing. But every authority in Scotland puts all the data in here. Which class you're in, what courses you're doing, what your timetable is, absolutely everything is in there. And we get a feed coming through from this. And our feed is who's in what class. Who's in what school even, local authority. And the idea is that our system then moves and tracks and gets fed by this. So when a pupil moves from one class to another, that automatically happens, gets translated through into the services. So our authentication system through RM Unify gets this feed. Now you can see, I've got Isla High School. You can see how big this school is, eh? There's 15 pupils in S1. So you can see that they're there. And all that data is pulled through. So I've got all this data, and the data is pulled through, already through. Here's my registration class. I'm looking for an art class in the school. It'll feed through and pull all the data through, and I can find my class really quickly. And even better, I can change the password there and then. So previously, when that PEX was, the kids would go, I want to be here for 20 minutes, I forgot my password, down to the office, get it reset, 20 minutes to come back. 50-minute period, it's almost gone. I hated that. So that was one of the first things we drove to get changed. Teachers can now change the password there and then. So it gets that whole classroom management thing. The data is hosted in the cloud. So it means it's that cloud data. It's an AD, which means it's on demand. So at the moment, we're trying to make it so that, for example, Office 365, which is one of our services, is available and we can pull all our data through. One of the advantages of Office 365 is it's unlimited storage to every user. So that's every teacher, every pupil, every admin assistant, every classroom assistant has a login. It's unlimited storage. We've tested it to 17 terabytes upload to see what would happen. It just kept going. We ran into a barrier at 22,000 individual items in a single folder. It went, oh, that's enough.
In terms of servers in the cloud, what servers do you use to host the data?
Well, these are all cloud. So this is the Microsoft Azure AD CDN system. So it's content delivery network through them. So they provide that, they support that. The cost of this is absolutely nothing.
Wow.
They don't charge. What they don't do either is support, and they don't listen to us when we want to change. You just get it. Okay, so pros and cons to that. So it's here, and I did make some PowerPoints, but as being PowerPoint, you'll notice that PowerPoint's not online. So I can now edit this online, I can change it. And actually I've, in a Word document, I had a class of 30 editing a Word document live, maybe 20 pages, all at the same time, all changing it, and it worked. It worked from Ireland, it worked from anywhere. So I talked about Ireland as a school, but perhaps the junior in the background. My pupils working. Now you see, They're using tablet PCs, full wireless networking, no interactive whiteboards, because I don't believe in them. We use wireless projectors and tablets, so as a teacher I can walk around. Being from Govan, it means I can stand at the back of the class and make sure you don't turn your back on them. But I don't know, that's a personal thing, you know. It's the old Billy Connolly one where you put the wing mirrors on the side of the teacher's head. So it's there, developing. So we've changed, we'll continue to change. So these are the recommendations. It should be, user focus, doing what you want it to do, any place, any time, open system. Now it's a really difficult one. When it comes to data, and we're talking 658,000 pupils data, what does open mean in that context? You know, because you've got 6-year-olds, you've got 16-year-olds, they're not wanting the same thing. And it becomes a different type of service at that point. Excuse me. So our Glow ID, which is what we've really created, is a library ticket. It's a library ticket into a large collection of things. We all know the big influence that the library tickets had at that point on the world. So Cirrus takes the stuff into RN Unify, then Office 365, and WordPress blogs and wiki spaces, Adobe Connect, and any other service. So let's go look at what that actually looks like. So here's my personal launchpad. So this is just my choice of stuff. And there is actually 3 levels in it, and only 2 are showing at the moment. So there's actually the high school, Argyll View, and Scotland. Resources for the whole of Scotland. Put in Scotland one. Resources for my school, I've just put in there. And if my local authority position stuff, that would appear in the middle. All these services through the app library are available to switch in. So the Scottish Schools Science Education Centre, they actually have a broadcasting studio, so they can actually broadcast through video. You know those old science experiments we used to do in school, till we're perfectly safe and found out years later we're actually irradiating ourselves? They do all those. Call Scotland, which is the accessibility things at Edinburgh University. Fantastic resources. Okay. So you can see I can choose a whole load of stuff. And you can see lots of blogs because each local authority has their own. Some of these will be different levels of authentication. Some will be take the data through of who the user is actually signed in, what school they're in, what age they are, and deliver appropriate resources to them. Others are simply a key in the door, yes, come in, with no identification going through at all. So some of the examples of those are so for example, Scotland on screen, if I click on that, this is actually signed me in by a shibboleth at the top right hand corner, but it has no information on who I am. It doesn't care if I'm a pupil, I'm a teacher, all it knows is that I'm involved in Scottish education. Okay, and that means I have the correct licence, which means I can use all this stuff. Okay. And because we have a licence for Scottish education, it means that we can literally go in and start downloading films, editing them together, building history programs. It's allowing access to these resources. Another example, let's go to Twig. It's a really interesting one. So this is Twig video, and again, and this time it's recognised who I am. Okay, it said Mr. Stewart's come through, because we're very formal in education, so Mr. Stewart's come in, but actually, let's go to mind map. Let's go to the biology section. Plants. So you can see it's been designed by a biologist, so it's all categorised, it's all segmented out. Although you can do a search, it'll take you through the videos. So all of this is on demand. But because it knows who I am, I can collect videos. So a pupil can collect videos, a teacher can collect videos and start building their own portfolio. But again, this service is separate from every other service. So it's come in, it's pulled me in. There's no APIs at the moment connecting things up. That's one of the things we'd like to do. The other interesting thing is actually because Glow, this login, is actually is actually an Office 365 equivalent. Because it signs into Office 365, there's actually some tools that I can start bringing in. So GeoGebra, are you aware of GeoGebra? GeoGebra is open source mathematics, multi-platform, community-driven, all those things. Interestingly, if I say sign in, it's asking me one of the accounts is Office 365. But actually, because I just closed it wrong. Because I've set my account up before and used an Office 365 account, it's actually allowing me to sign in. That's not been set up by us. That's not been permissioned by us. That's just a choice that they can make. Now, what this means for lots of things is that working with universities, for example, if universities wanted to support a particular course, they don't have to put stuff in here. They can build it separately and just say, I want a tile that takes, I want all students in Scotland can bring it through. So one example is it's Shakespeare's anniversary of his death in February. Okay, it's 400 years since Shakespeare's death. I had to go and look it up. They said it was Shakespeare's anniversary. I had to go and look it up. It was actually anniversary of his death. So the BBC have said, we want to create a resource that pupils can come into. They can interact with each other, work with each other, but we have to know the pupils. But instead of building it here or inside one of our tools, they build it separately. And for the whole country, in Scotland and in Wales, they can actually say, use your login, which is this, click on it, and it will take them straight in, and they know that's happening. They can't do that in England because there isn't a single ID that lets them all in. In Wales, they call it Hub, HWB, but it's the same idea. The difference is in Wales, they're just using Office 365, so it's signed straight into Office 365. And the authentication happens in there. We've stepped that back. The reason for that is that we want to make all of this modular so that everything can be taken out and replaced, added in, which actually goes back to the desire of what we want it to be, which was agile and as open as possible. I think that's probably better to call that open as possible. So it becomes your library ticket. You'll notice that each of these blocks could be taken out and something else put in place. So we use wiki spaces right now. There might be another wiki provider who come out, come into the market, and actually it's identified as being a better product. We can take that out and plug the other one in. Okay, and it's deliberately built like that. It also means things like Office 365 could come out and another service going, i.e. Google. Okay, so all this system is totally modular. What that means in terms of usability means that we've got a lot of choice. And actually in schools, teachers struggle with choice. It's one of the things they really do struggle with. They want to be told, tell me to do this. Just tell me to do it and I'll do this. They don't want choice, but we can't do that too much because each authority is actually doing something slightly different. So what we're providing is just lots and lots of space. So unlimited storage. What I should say actually is the service for Office 365 we consider a school, and as such it's closed so that you wouldn't let anybody wander through a school without knowing who they were, without identifying who they were. So this is actually closed to 856,000 users for our school teachers and pupils. The other services, the wiki spaces, let me just bring up the wiki spaces, and the blogs, the WordPress, they can be public facing. As well as that, we have Adobe Connect, so we can actually set up meetings for Adobe Connect, and that can be public facing as well. So we can invite people in. So you then start to bring in global connections at that point. You can say to another school, here's a link, bring it in. Interestingly, this morning there were 200 primary schools listening to the Scots version of the Roald Dahl books. So that's been translated into Scots. So 200 primary schools around the whole country were actually sitting in their quiet time. So instead of a TV being up, they actually put it up here, and they were able to ask questions through the system. So it allows that kind of interaction. In terms of distance learning, we're just up to develop this, but this will be the start of our synchronous distance learning. So working with Western Isles, Highland, Orkney, Shetland, Argyll and Bute, those peripheries, where they can't get teachers. There's a major shortage of teachers right across the country, and actually we're looking at how we can support those individual subjects that are in short supply. And interestingly, that's the bit that's driving open textbooks and things like that. And the last thing, before any questions come up, is we're actually starting to build textbooks. It's in OneNote. It's a very powerful little tool called OneNote Class Creator. Okay, so who remembers a publisher from the early 90s? Yeah, this is what it reminds me of. It's just a really simple, I want to create a class. You put your class in, I'll probably called it doesn't test now, but we'll call it test. But I can put my overview in, and each pupil can have a space in here, and in fact, if I probably go here, yep, there's OneNote. So it builds a collaborative space for pupils, which synchronises. And what's interesting is that because it synchronises, that suited the remote parts of Scotland very, very well, who can't go onto websites because of lack of data, lack of connectivity, all those kind of things. Whereas this actually connects to the device, synchronises all the requirements you need. You walk out of the school, you access your resources on your device, make changes, walk back into school, synchronise the changes back up. So the combination of OneNote, which teachers get very, very well because it's a ring binder, along with the class creator, and the class creator will be building these collaboration space, a content library, a student library, content library everybody has access to. Sorry, the collaboration space everybody has access to. Content library, the teacher can add resources, pupils can view it. And the last one, the student notebook, is each pupil has their own space that only the teacher sees. So the teacher sees the entire class, but the pupil only sees themselves and the teacher. So I can place resources, individualised learning, give individualised feedback, criticise, quietly, privately, but all from a distance. Now this is starting to be used to develop textbooks, which can be then shared out with data built into them. Now, it's a very different model from having it as a WordPress or a wiki space or anything else, or Wikipedia even, because they require connectivity. We can't assume that. I've been doing some research on the accessibility for the lowest socioeconomic groupings. Interestingly, they have more devices than the highest socioeconomic groupings. They have more screens, usually smaller, usually cheaper, usually cracked, but they usually do have devices. What they don't have is connectivity, data. They don't have data plans, and it's like the electricity in their houses, and it runs out, everything shuts down. So we want to try and utilise that to make use of this stuff. And it's not just in Scotland, this is starting to happen, it's actually becoming a global movement, start to build stuff separately, making videos, embedding them in. And when I say embedding, I mean literally placing them in. So if I go in here, the teachers get this so quickly because all they have to do is video. Yeah, so it's a phone. Is grab and drop. And it puts a copy onto that page, which then syncs to the device, which can then be watched. So you can build up very quickly an entire textbook, which can then be taken, save as. Actually, what I'm going to do is package it all up. So you see a OneNote package, takes all that material, and makes it available sitting on a library shelf for people to download. Okay. So the authentication, Shibboleth and OAuth are the two standards we use, which gives us a problem with Apple devices because they don't use standards, they use their own standards. But all the resources now are all the apps we can access directly in here. Last thing, 24 out of 32 authorities now have Microsoft agreements Well, they had Microsoft agreements, they always did. What Microsoft had done is given us 1.5 million licenses for Scotland. And if they've got the correct license, every pupil in that authority, every teacher, gets 5 copies of Office free of charge to put in any device they want to. And that syncs, accesses straight into the resources in the cloud and pulls it straight in, which makes iPads, Android becomes device agnostic at that point. Now, I'm not saying that that's the best thing to do, whether you want Office on every machine, but that's appropriate for education. But that is part of the whole thing that I think builds it all up quite interestingly. So that's 15 minutes of me talking. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, so I'm really interested in the sort of the shared notebooks and that kind of that data, not device, because I was at the C conference last week, which is a big kind of UK educational technology conference, and one of the keynote speakers there was from South Africa, and that's what she was talking about, equality and access, and it's also that synchronisation thing is a real big issue. Are you encouraging teachers to think about open resources and sharing Creative Commons, or because this is closed, are you actually just allowing them to have kind of the cultural experience of
cultural experience
trying to do these kind of things, and then maybe?
Yeah, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt around a lot of this stuff. You know, it's a lot of fun, which I love using in Glasgow, and it's it's that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. A lot of authorities don't understand. As a government, Scottish Government have open government licence, which is actually completely open. It's actually Creative Commons with no restrictions at all. I am aware that several companies from other parts of the world have come in and taken resources and resold them in other parts of the world, perfectly legally, because it is completely open. And I think that's really good for data, but I think we need to get an understanding of Creative Commons. And I think we need to build that into our pupils and our staff. If we're just scratching the surface of that, as I was saying earlier to you, it's just that they have said, oh, I need to make sure this stuff is safe because my authority on it. And they don't understand the authority don't own it anymore. It's actually owned by, if it's been paid for by public money, it's owned by the public. And getting that message across, not just to teachers, but to local authorities. I know local authorities say, oh, we can sell this stuff to other local authorities. You know, actually, you can't. This is owned by everyone. It's paid for by public money. What you can't do is sell your skills. And actually, that's much more sustainable than selling a resource. And some are getting it, some aren't. But it's a big, big cultural change and shift. So we've started literally just scratching the surface on this.
And when you create the classroom thing, because you're all authenticated, I presume like the teacher, will all their class automatically be in?
Not right now. Right now it's a copy and paste job.
Right, so you have to.
But we're actually building that part right now with Microsoft. So there's a tool coming out they've aimed at the American market. It's called Class Dashboard and Sync. And they're aiming at the American market, working with their MIS providers there. But actually, we look at it and go, you can do that. And that's what we're trying to do. So our teacher going, I typed an art into Office, into RM Unify as a tool, pulled up a class. I want to do that in any of the services. I want to do it in WordPress, I want to do it, just type an art, pull up a big list, and that's my class, and it just starts populating it. But it's not quite there yet. There's the last wee bits to build, which are always the slowest and hardest to get just right. So we've done lots of big stuff. And we've done this since October. This has been all the changes have happened. So it's not been a huge amount of time. I went into post a year last January, and a lot of that was unpicking, organising, getting things up, doing all that, and then we went and switched over to this new system in October. In that time, since October last year, we've gone from 1% usage, and the last figures I heard, we were not quite where Glow was at its absolute peak, but not far off it, and certainly going that way. A couple of big pushes in that. Glasgow has just signed up to use this completely for all their email. I suspect it's more to do with money than anything else, because this is zero cost to them as well. You know, so it's starting into where's this going in. The thing with the BBC with Shakespeare for his anniversary is a really interesting one, because that was one of the shortest telephone conversations I ever had. the guy from London. He said, so how can we get schools in? I said, well, this is how we use it. Oh, I thought shrivel through it. Shrivel? Okay, that's it. That's fine.
Do the inspectorate look at how well it's being used?
The inspectorate look at digital learning and teaching as a whole.
Yeah.
Digital learning and teaching is beyond Globe. Globe's a service
Sure.
to support that. But they look at, and they're starting to look at beyond, replacing a worksheet with an iPad with a worksheet printed on it. They'll just start to develop into that. But everybody's learning, absolutely everybody. Interestingly, there's a post in HLI, Vice Inspector of Education, for digital learning, a specific one that right now advertised. So, again, it's that growing, changing, but schools have got so much catching up to do.
Yeah.
It's how you do it. And then you've got the OECD report that came out today, which basically said there is no evidence of impact of technology in learning and teaching. And I totally agree. If you just walk in and throw technology, it has zero impact. In fact, and the report says it has a negative impact. You're absolutely right. It needs the pedagogy to be right. It needs to be transformational. It needs to teach us to understand what's possible, start to embed that, control that, bring it through, and allow students to develop the skills and bring it forward, and understanding what it means to work together and collaboratively to build things together.
And I think now we're at a stage with that, it just makes it so much easier for people, because I know I've come to suffer through all the stages of trying to get technology more easier to be used in schools and now in university. So this is great, and I work at a university, and our students have Office 365. I would love if our staff had that, so we could get people, our staff, just authenticating to do that, because there's so many things coming through now that they could just do quickly. But they can't, and it's quite frustrating. Any more questions for you? That's great, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Jane, would you like to?
Yeah, nothing on the same scale. But do you want a Victoria cake at all?
Yes.
All right, well, probably around the corner. It's always good when you
One age off.
come to Glasgow. Yeah, well, what am I? 1H. 1G. I can't remember. I'm next door to you. Yeah, I've put my glasses on. No, it's always fun, isn't it? Help somewhere else because it's only working more or less the same area.
It's good to see every pupil, every teacher. Yeah. It's cultural changes at that.
So, what are we doing now? Aha, I'm just too impatient. Yeah. Right, now I realise, but I say this, it's obviously my son's university essay.
Oh, critical feedback.
There's no pictures on these, I should say. Okay. So, yes, well, first of all, I should introduce myself. As you gathered, I work in the Scottish Government. I'm in the Digital Directorate, which you're part of too. Unplanned, which has 3 divisions within it, and I'm head of what's called connectivity, economy, and data, which some links between the 3. It's a convenience, really, putting some of those 3 together. So actually, responsible in a sense for some of the public sector investments in connectivity, especially for those remote areas you're talking about. But also interested in digital economy in terms of businesses based on use of digital technology. And of course, one of the inputs to that a lot of you are interested in is about public, the availability of data as a resource, and that's part of the agenda in terms of our interest in data. Is about the public sector making much more of its data open. That is, of course, it's non-personal and non-commercial data. So I just wanted to let you know really where the public sector is on that agenda in terms of making more data open. One's never sure quite what people have heard before. So I was going to rush through some of this, and then you can always, interrupt me or ask questions. You may have heard before that we worked in Scottish Government with, not just with the wider Scottish public sector in terms of, say, local government, but also with people from Local Knowledge Foundation, with just anybody who really turned up to be interested on the development of a strategy for making more data open across the public sector. And after that process, that was published in February. So it was really trying to set some ambitions about what we want to do. But it also identified, I think, three main things that we would lead nationally in Scottish Government to really help people in local government, in health, wherever, to make their data open. So one of the things was, if you like, a resource pack that people in organisations could use to take them through that journey of why you might want to do that, really. So that was the sort of communication, if you like, at chief executive level and so on. Why is this actually worth doing? And then some of the more of the how, about things that some of my team are much better versed in than me in terms of metadata and so on. So that resource pack, again, some of you, or certainly quite a lot of people in Open Knowledge Foundation, really gave us quite a lot of feedback on that toolkit, for which I say we're very grateful. That you can find on Scottish Government website. But again, I think that toolkit by itself is not enough probably to get people started always. So what we are doing is making available some training, which, if you like, Scottish Government's going to pay for initially to try and get people interested, but also to get some feedback about how that might be refined, so that if there is interest, and if we can come up with a package that people find attractive, we'll then, through a sort of procurement framework, put in place training that organisations will have to pay for themselves, but will be more economic because we've contracted centrally for that. So in terms of the initial training, which will be either sort of 1 day or 2 days, depending on what level people want to go to, we had bids, we have assessed them, we had expected to notify who got that contract a couple of weeks ago, but we had to do a wee bit of clarification with one of the bidders, so we probably won't announce that till next week. But hopefully that will engender again a bit more interest and then capability in public sector organisations, such that they do begin to go a bit more on this journey. I mean, clearly some are doing a lot more than others already, and I mean that's really good, because that, in a sense, is a lesson in itself. Glasgow's doing a lot, Edinburgh's doing a lot, Aberdeen's done quite a lot. So there's all those place-based resources, if you like, and then there's some thematic ones where a lot of the environmental public bodies have come together. Some of you may know, to create Scottish Environment Web, for example. So in a sense, we want to publicise those, but really help other people on the same journey. We had said that in order to aid discoverability of what the public sector was making available, that we would, if you like, create a portal. We had decided there was really no possibility, if you like, of having one publishing platform. The UK government have a publishing platform for, if you like, for the UK government, with some local government data on it. But I think that sort of grand project for the public sector as a whole in Scotland just seemed too complex, and that some of the city councils were far enough ahead, they said they weren't going to play ball. So we then thought we might have something that would try and take you into data in those different publishing platforms. But I think on the whole, one, we weren't sure we'd do better in leading people into documents than people searching straight through Google and so on. And secondly, I think that ability to take people straight to documents or help them straight to documents really is depending on people making data open in a sensible way. And people aren't there yet. So we're going to do something very straightforward really, which just might list, if you like, the various publishing platforms, portals that already exist. And that's partly for people who are interested in open data, but it will partly be, if you like, to show one local authority what another one's already done, and so on and so forth. So that's the current intention. Any comments on that, welcome. But basically, we think we got the recommendation of the strategy wrong. So we've done the toolkit, we're doing the training, but we've sort of had second thoughts about the portal idea. But that's all about the Scottish public sector as a whole. Scottish Government itself has got to, if you like, act in line with the wider strategy. So on statistics particularly, and I can't remember if somebody's come and talked to you about this before, I think not in Glasgow, the statisticians are developing, and they've got a contract with Swirl, who some of you may know of, certainly the Swirl guy. I know he goes to the Edinburgh meetings.
Yeah,
he's been here.
here.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway,
Definitely.
they've developed statistics up there, the beta site. And it did have a slide that said it was would go further than the ambitions of the open data strategy. I thought that was a bit cheeky, so I took it out. But basically, they are trying to move. They are moving very quickly to 5-star data and so on. So, as it says, if you have not looked at it, they would certainly welcome your feedback. They had hoped to be a bit further ahead than they are, but I think they are being ambitious, and thus it's taken a bit longer than they expected. Statistics is not the only thing we're interested in, so we do want to make other information available too. I mean, we already publish a lot, but it's publishing it again with the appropriate information, metadata, whatever. We also, I think, as a sort of, we need to begin to think, as does the whole of the public sector, about how we align that open data objective with the freedom of information regime, which in a sense at the minute stand rather separately, but that again is something for the future. So that's what Scottish Government is doing, particularly but not exclusively focusing on open data and trying to get the statistics really to that highest level of open data quickly as a really, I can't think of the right word, but project that is showing the way. So that's in brief where we are. So I mean, what I really wanted, I suppose, is just show you that public sector is trying to get that for all of you who want to use open data. We are trying to get our act together, and then that's onto all the slides there. If you're interested in how that open data strategy fits into wider ambitions on using data well, which is in a sense also about data linkage, about how we use personal data carefully and effectively, which clearly GLOW has to look at that. Then there is a wider data action plan. There is a data vision for Scotland, and all the papers linked to that are at that location. We're also, I guess, continuing to try and support events, which are about open data. Edinburgh's planning a pretty big conference with a big user aspect in October, which we're putting a wee bit of money into, and so on. I think the environmental people are also planning something as well. So anyway, that's where we are. Any feedback always welcome, especially on, I think, I mean, you can go to the individual organisation, but any feedback on, you know, what you see as priority data sets, either just for publication or for priority data sets for getting up the sort of 5-star chain, is always very welcome. So that's me. If anybody's got any questions, comments.
Thanks very much, Jane. Any questions?
Jane, just one question.
Yeah.
You may not be able to answer it, but you mentioned that.
Especially if it's not a technical one.
No, it's not technical. It's just in a general sense. You were saying about getting more public sector data made more available and open. What about citizens here in terms of Scottish Government, citizen science, and having participated? Is there a focus in the data sphere on the citizen and how the citizen can provide? I know we're doing work with the Welsh Government on this, and just aware of what the Scottish.
Probably the honest answer is no. In terms of data. I mean, there's a rather different thing about, you know, how can we engage with the public differently, you know, instead of just issuing consultation papers and please reply within 3 months. In terms of citizen data, I'm not aware of, I would have thought Glasgow may be nearer that. But I would be interested in that. So what's the Welsh answer?
Well, this is European. We coordinate a European project called Cobweb, which is Citizen Observatory Web.
Right.
And the purpose of this is we're working in biosphere reserves, but it's not solely the work that's going on can be applied. The Welsh Government's a significant partner in that, and they're very keen in using citizens to gather information that then feeds into policy making. You mentioned the environment. Just actually.
Has it got an environment focus?
It is because it's UNESCO biosphere reserve, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, flooding, big issues that the public sector have to face. Using the citizen to actually. I
mean, what I don't know is whether any of the environment bodies are actually doing that.
Interest in terms of.
But I mean, I don't think we haven't got a high level objective relating to that. But that's not to say some of the, for example, environment bodies might not be doing something.
Of the Welsh Government using a particular data file.
There's a number of case studies, and we're working on flooding and Japanese.
So the citizens volunteers to put this data.
Yeah, they're using co-design. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on, but they're embracing this. They seem to be wanting to take a lead in the UK sense.
Yes, I don't know if SEPA or anybody did. Yeah, that's the environmental protection.
SEPA's done some work in schools asking them to do something similar, using a role ID to identify which area they come from, because then the kids don't need to go and say, I am from, they pull that data over.
Oh, right.
But now you need to really young kids, you know, that data automatically.
No, the glow thing's fascinating. Sorry, anything else, please?
That's great, thank you, Jane.
All right, I'll just get rid of this.
Our last.
Or should we have a coffee break?
What do you want to? I was thinking, do you want to have a coffee and then
I'll be quite quick, but it's up to you guys.
well, we can either have a quick update from you now,
or
we do that and then have a sort of a longer kind of chat over coffee. It says we're not allowed to bring tea and coffee in here.
That's okay.
So we've now got here from the Future Cities and project in Glasgow. It's just going to give us a quick update on something that's happening in the Glasgow Future Cities project. He's standing in the last minute, so thank you very much.
That's okay, but I will pretty much focus on like the questions I was just put there about the citizen side of things. So I've been leading the project working with communities in Glasgow to actually get a lot of their community data and get that shared among a lot of people in Glasgow. So I'll show you 2 projects that I've been working on specifically in Glasgow, one in Easter House and one in Googles. And I'm part of the Future City project. I'm sure some of you might be aware of the Future City project in Glasgow, some of you might not be, but we're a UK funded project coming towards the end of the demonstrator phase to showcase how we can use technology to make Glasgow smarter, safer and more sustainable. But I'll take you to this website that we've worked with Easter House. So this is a very basic map that we worked with in Easter House. So this was back in March that we actually launched this, but we were working with Water, who can't make it with us today. But Water is actually a volunteer, a sustainable recovery worker who works with a local alcohol charity in Easter House. It's called GAPS, the Greater Easter House Alcohol Awareness Project. So his main remit is to help a lot of volunteers who are recovering alcohol to find local services in their local area. Because a lot of people in recovery tend to want to find out what's going on. A lot of people in Easter House, especially in the recovery side of things, tend not to find what's going on. They go to a local community centre, but there's nothing really online for them to actually know. So this map was actually made, so Walter actually did do a lot of his work in his office. We had a map and he just used pins, bright colour pins, to actually showcase what local services are. So we approached him back in, I think it was back in June, to actually get this online and actually get a lot of that data put online. And all of this data was actually from the local volunteers, from local boxing clubs to local community centres. So yeah, anything that they found useful. So we created this quick portal to showcase how we can do this in Easter House. So this portal allows users to sign in and add or suggest a local service in Easter House. It doesn't have to be in Easter House, it could be anywhere in Glasgow, as it shows. It gives them a lot of image, it gives them a bit of information about the local service, for example, gives it a lot of image. But most importantly, all this data has come from local volunteers. So my job over the last couple of months or last year or so was actually to train up a lot of local volunteers in actually adding a lot of local services on this website. So they added a bit of information, an image, the automatic geocoding data, and that gets all sent to Water, who's a moderator. So all this data is moderated, and that gets put onto the website. So this is a way of crowdsourcing local data for local people to use. So yeah, this is what we've pretty much done, and we have over 250, probably reaching nearly 300 pieces of information at different services, 4 different categories. And from a Glasgow City Council perspective, that's a really useful data set to have, because this data is all crowdsourced. This all data showcase what local individuals go to for services, because we have a data set of all the community centres, some of the services are run by Glasgow City Council. But this, for example, gives us an insight, a different type of insight of what community services people actually use it. So it gives us a much more in-depth analysis of what's going on. And we have used that data to actually create heat maps and actually get a bit of analysis of what type of services these users actually are using. So this is a map that we've used. And the GAP is now taking ownership of this product, and they are now continuing to train up local volunteers who are also in recovery. So they're also gaining digital skills, digital training, and a lot of engagement. So we create this toolkit, this digital toolkit, an online user guide to actually show them how to do this. And now this is a self-sustaining cycle where the volunteers are continuing to train up other individuals to add local services onto this website. But yeah, that's pretty much it of what we're doing in terms of crowdsourcing data in the Easter House. And then Water calls this more of a recovery map. So it's a way of signposting individuals to different services. So that's pretty much the Easter House side, and we are now taking this idea and creating a more robust platform in Gorbals. So Gorbals have also asked for something similar, because a lot of people in Glasgow, especially in local communities, there's a simple sentence that they use, they don't know what's going on. Well, there's nothing going on in the local community, but there's plenty going on. It's more about having access to those local services and a way of allowing the community to actually put that data online and actually saying this data is actually from other individuals, other neighbours or other individuals that you can see what's going on. So that's what we're pretty much doing in terms of the future city side of things. But we are using this across communities, and the hope is that there'll be an individual website or go-to website that is run by a local charity or community centre. So all these websites will pop up now across Glasgow, but that's the future. I think that's going to happen. But it's just pretty much a demonstrator to showcase how we can crowdsource citizen data and how the local authority, like Glasgow City Council, can actually use their data to actually have further insights. That makes sense. Yeah. But I'm sorry that Water can't make it, but he gives really good, really good, I don't know, a heartfelt way of showcasing how this actually does affect his life, because he's saying that this is actually not saving people's life, but it's really helping people in recovery, having them see what's going on.
How long has Walter been involved in this?
He's been involved from the start. Right. So we approached him under the scoping of the Future City Demonstrator back, probably I think it was last March, part of the scoping document of what Future City could be, and he's been involved from planning it, but also agile side of development. So he's what he suggested different ideas and stuff like that. So he's been part of the whole cycle, and now he's taking ownership of his product.
Yeah, I think we'll be very keen to have him
Yeah,
next
definitely.
time.
Hopefully we'll go to. Well, I'm just thinking, shall we go and have a cup of coffee and then we can maybe
Yeah, sure.
catch up? I think there's a really nice link though with what Jane was saying, really getting community involvement with data, and it's a really lovely example of that actually.
Can I ask you a boring question?
Yeah.
What
Just
are the
check the
underlying,
team.
are the underlying maps told in the survey or not?
No. We don't use OS data for this service.
Was there restrictions or not? Too difficult to use or?
I think there was we're trying to be all open in terms of all the stuff that we're trying to use. I think there's some sort of a issue licensing.
Yeah, no, that's why I was interested because
Yeah.
My budget pays for the
Yeah.
agreement with OS.
I think there was some sort of a restriction with the license.
Oh, right. Well, I might find out about that.
That would be good.
I'd rather not. I don't know if I would do that to people. I'm joking. Anyway, we can get some tea.
There was more schools to be doing supplements.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Isn't
isn't it?
it?
Have you seen the Digimap stuff though? That yeah.
Edinburgh, 4 months ago, for catering for lunch, it's something like 100 quid for sandwiches for 8 people. And they actually go on the road to do that because
Hi, how are you? Good.